Hi, I'm Martin Smith. To start off this video, I need to say something really serious about uh, getting into the stock market with an LLC or a company, and that is about your Social Security number. There is a clause dealing with two companies, so that if you start up an LLC and the LLC, according to the IRS, has its own particular personal ID code. It has its own code. And that code is all you're really supposed to have legally for it. However, every stock market company or brokerage that I went to required that they have my Social Security number also, and the Social Security number of every member of the LLC. So being a multi-member LLC, this ran into a couple of problems. One, the purpose of getting an LLC was to keep my Social Security number from being in so many hands, as in it can get lost and that number can be used to ruin me financially. So I and everybody else has a lot to lose. The other factor is that going through an LLC, as soon as you go to that brokerage, they have absolutely no liability whatsoever for anything they do with your Social Security number. This can be a major problem. So the first thing I did was I looked around for brokers. I went to TD Ameritrade first because it was the closest one to me. We filled out forms. I had someone help me fill out forms. I did not give them my Social Security number. We just left it blank because the company number was given, and according to the IRS, that's all they have to have. And it is for my safety and the other members' safety. And I got a 4-page paper back saying all the things that might be wrong with the form that I filled out and turned in. That's me going into TD Ameritrade, and it just pretty much fell through. So I just gave up on it. It just, after, if you're going into an office, that's the purpose of going with somebody that has an office nearby. You can go in and they can figure out the problems. They didn't figure out the problems, they created more problems. After that, I got back on the internet and looked up more brokerage firms near me. I went to a few others that were a little bit shady and dodgy and small offices, and looked around, walked out. And eventually I went to Fidelity, a little bit farther away, and I ran into the same problems. And they stepped me through every single problem, as in, instead of getting a 4-page paper of all the things that were wrong, and there were a lot of things wrong, we had to work through, and definitions. You go to a lawyer's office and they have their own definitions for what things mean, and apparently the brokerage firms have their own particular definitions also. So, but this particular firm here in Greensboro, North Carolina, they were a good team. They worked things out. They hammered out one thing at a time. The Social Security number was a problem because by law, if anybody I give my Social Security number to Fidelity, or if it gets in their system and either the company uses it or somebody else uses it, they have no liability to any damages that happen to me. So eventually we worked this back through, and the forms and the contract that they make with each individual person that they deal with, it's a non-disclosure form, what they do with your personal information. So you need to get them to print that out for you, get it in writing. The other person that owns the company, Shows Vineyards LLC, the other owner of that, his wife is a legal secretary, so we got that to a lawyer. and there's a copy being held. And through that, I can't think the exact name of it, but there is a name for the form of pretty much their declaration of what they do with your personal information and how they protect that information. Going back to how this started is about 8 months ago, you will notice that I stopped putting up videos. That's because our President of the United States decided he was going to badmouth my favorite company, and that was Tesla. I've been following Tesla ever since they started and even before they went onto the stock market. So I withdrew $20,000 and put it into a bank brokerage at a bank. It was $30 per transaction. Not a good way to do it anymore, but that's the way I went. So if you're going to do that, you want to do large transactions only. And what that does is it means that none of that goes through the internet. So everything is done at the bank, everything's signed at the bank, and the only losses that occur for something like that are usually when the broker, and there is a probability of this, I don't know what the probabilities are, is when the broker transfers all the money out of everybody's brokerage accounts, puts it into his own personal account overseas, and disappears. We see this in the news quite a bit. It does happen. He was concerned that I was putting everything in stocks into Tesla, and I saw we were peaking out on the stock market, and I was more likely betting against it. I wasn't putting money in there to invest in the stock market. I was putting money in there to invest in Tesla and to back up Tesla. And he said that I needed to, for the $30 charge that I got, he did the transaction for me, and he told me that I needed to diversify. So I thought about it for a while, and I know that he was meaning that I needed to buy other types of stocks other than Tesla, but I decided to diversify in another way. I basically went out and got another broker, as in instead of doing a personal brokerage, I thought about doing it through an LLC, with the possibility of using different accounts for some of my relatives, because neither myself nor my cousin Crate really are all that interested in, or don't see any of our immediate family relatives taking the company over. And I would like to see this company being under a 300-year plan, which basically means it's just not going to happen with anyone that we know of, and who's going to be the next manager and what makes a good manager. And whether you're dealing in a card game, a auction, that being animal auction or any other type of auction, or the stock market, if you don't know who the sucker in the room is, then you're the sucker. And that's something that I learned farming, and whether you be in wheat, crops, or you're going out to buy a tractor at an auction, you're going to have to learn how to wheel and deal and make bids on items and do research. So, from this point, I'm looking at this as if I can do up or make different accounts and start relatives off when they're about 8 years old and just give them $1,000 and see what they do with it, type deal. And the ones that can make money in the stock market would be half decent in business and farming. So, farming takes a lot of hats. You have to be able to be a good mechanic. You have to have a green thumb. I don't. You have to be good at finance. You have to understand that there's a lot of money in it. So it's always better to, especially if you grew up as a farmer, you pretty much already know what you're getting into. But if you haven't, then the best rule of thumb is don't spend more than 3% of what you have on the farm. And just know that the other 97% will get spent. There's a lot of money in farming. There is very little profit. You do it for good health, good air, and good food. That's the reason to be farming, and it's a great place to bring up kids too. But anyhow, getting back to it, farms require lots and lots of land, lots of money. Like I say, they require a lot of money up front. And most farms, even if they're paid for, they go under in a couple years. If you're borrowing money to start a farm, you got a snowball's chance in hell of surviving it. It's just not going to happen. It's just too much money in, not enough money in profits in farming, at least in the United States. Most farms are large companies, large organizations. It is also a good place to take deductions on land. If you're doing timber, you can expect to make about $7 a year per acre. In farming, you are required to make at least $100 per acre per year. But you're still having to do management of the farm, and you still have to find managers if you want it to go on after you pass away. And like I say, I would like it to go on for at least 300 years. I'd like a 300-year plan. And that means I got to weed out people that want to be but aren't capable. So I think the stock market is a good place to do that. You see people all the time getting into the stock market saying, get in, get in, get in, we'll make lots of money. This is wonderful, this is great. And the next thing you know, they're absolutely broke. Both my sister and my father lost many, many fortunes in the stock market. I can't think of any time in which they've ever bragged about making lots of money in it. But yeah, at least two fortunes have been lost in the stock market in my family. The Schoss Vineyards, the money for the Schoss Vineyards came from my grandmother and her parents, and that's why the last name is Schoss. Mary Schoss Hawks was my mom's mother. So from here I started putting more money into Tesla under the LLC, the name of the LLC. So once you put the money in, it's not yours anymore, it belongs to the company. Through this, the idea is that if I make any profits, then those profits are deductible. And I've not tried it, I've not made any profits to prove that out one way or the other. I would like to say that there are more advantages of doing it through a company, but other than deductibility, I can't really think of any. Going through Fidelity, they have a really good phone app. I did not go through the internet because of keyloggers. And so with Fidelity, I keep it through the 4G system only for higher security, or at least I think it's higher security. And it's completely separate from the brokerage, as in that they have absolutely no ties to each other whatsoever. What that does is it separates money. Let's see here, one of the less reputable brokerage companies got hacked about 1 out of 6,000 times. That means that you go into your account and everything is gone. Somebody hacked your account, transferred all the money from your stocks into the brokerage account as cash, and then they transferred that money to a dummy bank account, closed that bank account out, and all their money was gone. So if you're doing stock market, there is a 0.6% chance right off the top that no matter what broker you have, that something's going to go wrong and all your money's going to disappear. That doesn't matter. Doesn't say that there's going to be a lot of bad stocks out there that just belly up. I'd say I started going through the stocks just randomly, and it looked like about 2 out of 3 of them were either crashed out accounts or a group of people got together, put money into a system, and they were looking to bleed it for all the money they can get out of people that were putting money into the stock market. So, I mean, even if you look at Charlie Munger or Kathy Woods, they do a lot of pump and dump. The Charlie Munger, Kathy Woods do more legal pumping and dumping. They go into a big company, they buy it, they make sure everybody know they buy it, and they have a lot of followers, so people buy it also. And what that does is they're buying it low. As people follow them, the price rises, and when they decide to leave, they sell out first, and they make more money doing that just because they have followers. So, like I said before, if you don't know who the sucker in the room is, you're it. I'm of the opinion you go in where everyone's going out. If you're going in when everybody else is going in, you're the sucker in the room. There's a lot of ways in which you can lose your shirt in the stock market. So all this being said, I just now pretty much put the last dime that I want to put in under the company account, and I started my own. I went back to the company that bought TD Ameritrade, that would be Charles Schwab. And it looks like all the good employees from TD Ameritrade are switching over to Charles Schwab brokerage in North Carolina. They can't represent both companies. So the better ones are transferring over, and that's might be why I did not get good results with TD Ameritrade. But to make the long story short, I'm feeling out Charles Schwab before I put any big sums of money into it, just to see how their account lies. I went with a Macintosh and hardline only. So when I go into it, the good thing about the Charles Schwab account was that I have an account name, I have a password. When I open it, it sends a code to my phone. Through text. It sends a text message to my phone. I pick up my phone, I key in the text message, and it's a one-time only key in. So it makes it really, really difficult for anyone to put a keylogger on my computer. Well, it's also hardline, and it's also a Macintosh, which is harder to do that too. And it gives an extra levels of security. Now, the people at Charles Schwab says, oh, you can take that off anytime you want to. I got news for them. Keyloggers are so easy to put in. Your system is so easy to hack through the internet and through the web. There's no way in the world I'm taking that extra security off. It's worth the extra 2 minutes to wait for the phone call, wait for the phone text, to keep your phone with you when you log in, and copy it over. I highly recommend that system. Don't take that system off. Or at least, I do not recommend it. So, the Schwab system is not as good as the Thinkorswim system that TD Ameritrade has for trading. Supposedly another 6 months I'll be able to deal with that, and it'll probably be 6 months or so before I have any real money in it. And like I say, feel out the format that the Charles Schwab system works in. And I also went with a bank account with Charles Schwab, so it gives me a second bank account and eventually a second debit card, just in case my first debit card doesn't work. If I'm at a gas station at night and nothing else works, it gives me a backup. That pretty much covers this video and why I have been absent for the last 7 months or so from making any videos. I've been watching the stock market and looking up all the people, or all the good YouTube video sites where you can learn about stocks, and I'll list those below.